In today's workshop, if you guys have not met Denise already, Denise, raise your hand. You guys probably won't be able to see her just at the moment because we do have the slide share on. However, Denise has been working on the team since the beginning of this year. I've known Denise for a little over a year. She's a personal trainer, a nutrition coach, and she's been doing this for many, many years. She's another baddie over 40, and no, she is not my sister, although we get confused for sisters every time we hang out, which is a fun, fun little fact. And that was such a fun pairing to meet her. But so we're excited to have her on the team. She's going to be leading this up with me today. And in the workshop today, we're going to be breaking down what is progressive overload. We're also going to be sharing why that's important to your time spent in the gym, so you are not wasting your time. Time is a precious commodity these days, and you want to really get the biggest bang for your buck. And I want you to stick around to the end because we're going to talk about how to progressively overload. That way, when you get in the gym with every session, you can honestly ask yourself, am I working to my body's fullest potential here for making changes in several different areas? And it just depends on really what your goals are. But nonetheless, we're going to tear it down and break it up for you so that way you are armed with knowledge. So this first slide, we're going to have Denise dive in with slide number 1, and I will have her take the floor.
Okay, so Diane asked, right, what is progressive overload? And Bev said it's like when you increase the weight, and she's absolutely right. That is one of the portions or one of the elements of progressive overload. What you may not know is that there's a lot more to progressive overload than just increasing the weights, and we are going to get into all of that. So the actual definition or the technical definition or official definition, whatever you want to call it, it's when you gradually increase the weight, the frequency, or the number of repetitions in your strength training routine. And what this does is it challenges your body and allows your musculoskeletal system to get stronger, which is, at the end of the day, what we all want, right? So just like with nutrition, you have to give your body some time to respond. So I hear sometimes after 2 or 3 weeks of doing a routine, I'm bored. I'm getting bored, right? But getting bored after 2 or 3 weeks is not going to get you very far. You have to incorporate progressive overload. Now, you may ask, what is the right time frame, right? There's no specific number, a magic number to say do a routine X amount of weeks and you are going to just flip the switch and magically have all this muscle. But most times you need to at least have the same routine for 6 to 8 weeks, which is why we have you ladies on a 6-week time frame before we switch your routine. So getting bored after 2 or 3 weeks is not going to get you very far. I will say that I have been on a routine for 17 weeks. 17, that's like over 4 months, because you have to give your body time to respond to the stress that you are putting on her. So just a reminder, ladies, your body is not Amazon Prime, okay? So it is not going to show up overnight between 7 and 11 a.m. So you have to be patient and work through the elements of progressive overload. We've said it before, boredom is where it's at. That's where the magic happens. So the more you can understand that, the more comfortable you will be with really trying to master your workout. So we're going to tell you a little bit about how you can do that so that you're not getting bored after 2 or 3 weeks.
I love that. That's such a great point. I'm going to really tear this down in a few more slides about, getting bored and muscle confusion and all these things that we've heard over the years. We're going to get to that in just a second because this also ties very nicely in with, what Denise is saying is like getting bored is something that's understandable, but we're going to talk to you about progressive overload and how that can actually give you some different things to work on so you don't get bored, but you're not cheating yourself out of the benefits of your actual training program. Next, we have a little bit more on progressive overload. The reason why this is an important principle of your strength training is because if you are not doing it, you are not going to build strength. So for example, let's say, and this is why I really, pardon my French, but shit on influencers who are selling out there by the masses body weight programs that promise like these crazy transformations or booty bands and things like that as the way to achieve, hard sculpted glutes or toned legs. And while those things are great and they're great for health and longevity and, a lot of other health benefits, if your goal is to really have shape and what everyone calls tone and sculpt, that's only going to get you so far. You have to create a stimulus, and along with that is going to come strength. So if you are not challenging your legs, let's take a squat for an example, and you're just doing body weighted squats, at some point you're going to become incredibly efficient at that. And your body's going to need more stimulus in order to get stronger. It's going to need something to bump up against to deliver the response to your muscles that say, oh, hey, we need to adapt to this new weight that we're putting on the bar. So that is why we really, really want to impress upon you that following a training program, and then within that training program, working towards building more strength is super key to, tying this all honestly in together. The other thing is, clearly back to what I was saying is you're not going to build muscle. You're not going to give your body or your muscles a reason to change. You're basically staying at maintenance. If I'm going to do, let's just use biceps as another example. I'm going to do bicep curls. When you first start, maybe 10 pounds is real hard, 12 to 15 reps. Then the next week you're like, oh, I can get to 20. Then I can get to 30. At some point, that exercise has now moved from a muscle building, strength building exercise to now we're using different energy systems, and you're going to move more into cardio based movements. And this is where you see like the 15 to 20 rep model sort of come in for like group fitness classes, because people think they're burning more calories and that sort of thing. So with that, you have to understand, if you are just going to do 10-pound dumbbells for bicep curls forever, there's going to be a point of diminishing returns. So the next thing that's also key for this is plateauing is something we hear about often. And when it comes to that, we will kind of go through the measurables with diet and lifestyle, but also progressive overload. Are you challenging yourself in your workouts, right? Are you doing the same weights every time you go in? Are you doing the same amount of reps just because it says so on your plan every single time, right? If you're doing that, you'll plateau. If you go in and you do bicep curls every week for 10 to 12 reps with 10 pounds for infinity, that's probably the best your biceps are ever going to look. They're going to stay right there, right? So this is where we really want you to think when you're in your sessions about, where can I make this a little bit more taxing on my body to make it, grow for whatever goal you have in mind, strength or muscle change. And then lastly is muscle confusion, like we talked about, it's not a thing. And I think it was brought in, I feel like the 90s, somewhere in there, maybe the early 2000s, when you saw a lot of like P90X and, all these like infomercially, what is that? The body workouts that, Beachbody, like a lot of the Beachbody workouts. Again, I'm not shitting on them and saying they're not effective. I think they're great to just, get exercise and movement in. But for the conversation that we're in with you girls who really want to change the shape of your body, you want to grow and sexy glutes and legs, confusing your muscles by doing a bunch of random exercises every time you go in and thinking that that's what's going to change your body, it's actually spinning your wheels. And what can actually happen is you'll either overdevelop muscles in some areas, underdevelop, and just eventually spin your wheels and not really get very far with your progress if you want to change the shape of your body. So with that, the next one we have is Miss Denise on stimulus and recovery.
Yes. So Diane hit on a lot of really good points about doing the same thing over and over again and not challenging yourself. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that does to you and what it doesn't do. So we talk about our body being an amazing machine. We love her. We appreciate her for showing up for us and for all the things that she does. But let's get real. She is lazy. Okay. Our body is lazy, and muscle tissue is actually a burden to our body. So if your body is not using the muscle, she's going to lose it. So have you ever heard like probably the big gym dude be like, oh, I got skinny, right? They hate being called skinny because that means they've lost muscle. Or maybe you've been working out and then you stopped working out and then you look at yourself and you're just kind of like, I look flat. Like, what happened to my shoulders? Like, I feel like I lost muscle. You probably did because you were not using the muscle. So this is very much a use it or lose it kind of thing. If your body doesn't need or use the muscle, she will get rid of it. Okay. So when you become inactive, then your muscle starts to deteriorate. By deteriorate, I mean go away, right? This is what we call muscle, either you can say atrophy or atrophy, or I know that there's different ways people say hypertrophy, hypertrophy,
Yes.
same thing. This is what we're talking about. The point is use it or lose it. It's like your vacation at work. If you get 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you got to use it or lose it, right? So think of it the same way. You have to remain active. If your goal is to build muscle, we need to tell our body build muscle. She's smart, but she's not going to take the initiative to just build muscle. If that were the case, we'd all be walking around as bikini models, right? And that's not the case. So we have to tell our body to build the muscle. Now, how do we do that? Who can tell me? How do we tell our body, you need to build muscle?
I know, but I'd be cheating if I told
You would be cheating. And I don't want you to tell me. Who can tell me? How do we tell our body, build muscle, body?
Megan says weights.
Yes.
Let's see. Bev says add more weight. Shauna says lift heavier weights. Bev says be consistent.
Exactly. The way we tell our body to build muscle is by training, by lifting weights. That's how we communicate with our body, is with our action, and by mentally telling our body we're going to lift weights. Muscle mind connection. We've talked a lot about that, right? Those are the ways that we communicate with our body. Not just words, because you guys know we're really big on talking to yourself and the words that you tell yourself, but actually your actions. So what we're doing when we're lifting weights is we're telling our cells to produce new muscle cells in order to handle the load exertion. So what does that mean? It means lifting is essentially a stimulus that tells our muscles to grow. So when our muscles grow, now you're not just going to walk out of the gym and be like, all right, I lifted, I got muscle. It doesn't work that way. There's another part to it. And this is the part that most of us forget, right? So our muscles have to recover. Okay, we have to recover. What does recovery mean? Taking your rest days, getting in your sleep. This is, again, in your check-ins. If you have the VIP program, your coach is asking you, how is your sleep? What is the quality of your sleep? Are you sleeping through the night? Are you waking up? How many hours of sleep are you getting? All of this matters. So what happens when you recover from the fatigue of working out is your muscles recover to reach their baseline level of fitness. Okay, let me just break this down. What this means is that you go into the gym to stimulate your muscles. You're breaking down the muscle fibers, you're lifting, you're challenging yourself, you're pushing yourself. Cool. Now your muscles have to recover from all that stress, because at the end of the day, lifting weights is stress. It's a good stress, but it is stress. So now you have to recover from that stress. And so what the cool part about it is that when your body recovers, when your muscles recover, they will recover to the next level of fitness that you have stimulated. So let me explain that. You are here, okay? You're lifting 10-pound dumbbells and you are here. And you're lifting 10-pound dumbbells for 6 weeks. You're going to stay right here. But suddenly you go up to 15-pound level of dumbbells. And now when your body is recovering, she's like, oh, hold up, we lifted more weight. So we need to do some work here. So she will recover and break down the muscle fibers up here, because she knows that next time we're not lifting 10-pound dumbbells. We're lifting 15-pound dumbbells. And the way we recovered last time ain't going to cut it for 15. So we got to recover up here so that we can maintain the 15-pound dumbbells. And that's what happens. So if you keep pushing, then your body's going to recover. Oh, now we have 20-pound dumbbells. Oh, now we have 25. And so as your body recovers, she's building more muscle so that you can lift and be strong enough for your next level of fitness. So if you're not pushing yourself to that next level of fitness by incorporating progressive overload, and Diane is going to tell you how, different ways to to incorporate progressive overload. But if you're not doing that and you just stay here with your 10-pound dumbbells, don't be surprised when your body stays right here and you don't get any more muscle. So recovery is super important, but muscle gain is all about presenting the stimulus through progressive overload and then letting the system recover from it in order to adapt to that next level of fitness. Hopefully that made sense. If you guys have any questions, we'll give you guys a chance at the end of the presentation to ask any questions about that. So take notes on that, but stimulate the muscle by lifting and then let your body recover. It's a two-part system.
Yes. And very wonderfully put in terms of recovery. Like Denise said, I think we forget about that part a lot. It's overlooked. And, her example in terms of essentially leveling up is a great way to just give you a visual and a very easy way to think about it. And with the recovery piece of it, like she was mentioning, when we train, and a lot of people don't think of it this way, and I usually use this analogy because it's easy to sort of, I guess, visualize. It's kind of a little bit weird, but you're essentially creating like tears in your muscle fibers. That's when, you start to feel the muscle burn or you're really, really sore. A lot of times that's because you've broken down the muscle tissue, and the process of building more muscle happens in that recovery phase where you're eating your protein, you're drinking your glutamine, you're getting enough sleep, you're drinking enough water, and you're hydrating, right? All of those things matter to repair the muscle cells. So if you are finding that you're constantly sore, you feel like you're not recovering very well, and you're really not seeing much change in your body, you really need to look to your recovery to see where am I not filling in the gaps to make sure that I'm recovering properly. Okay, next one, my favorite slide is going to be the how-to. So, how to progressively overload. The first way that you can do this, there's obviously four ways here, but the first way is you increase the intensity in your session. So if you are going in for a leg day, and let's say leg press is on the menu, and week 1 of your training program, you do 135, right? Let's just say you do 135, which would be a total of 3 plates, 2 on one side, 1 on another, which is totally okay, by the way. And let's say, man, you get to 12 reps and you're like, I can't, there's no way I could push past 15. So you rack it, and that's your top set. Week 2, you get back in there, it moves a little bit easier, and you can get to 15 reps still at that 135 for your top set. Great. Week 3, you get in there by rep 10, you're like, I could probably do 20. This is your indication that it's probably time to add some more weight, right? So adding more weight as your body adapts to it is also going to be an indicator that you are progressively overloading. And there's sort of two examples in that example of progressively overloading, because in that example, not only are you progressively overloading with intensity, you're also progressively overloading with volume, which is number 2. Now, with volume, this is where I was mentioning adding in more reps. In the same example, maybe you decide by the time you get to that working set, okay, that felt pretty easy for 15th. I want to add on another set. And maybe this is going to be what we call a back off set, or you're going to add on another set and maybe add weight in that same training session, right? You could totally do that as well, if you feel like you can keep up with that sort of, that rep range or that set or the sets that you have indicated there. So doing more reps, doing more sets for that specific same exact exercise is a way to progressively overload. Then we have increasing frequency, which I think is another one that gets overlooked and forgotten, because when you are new, let's say you start out and you're training 3 days a week, and that's your norm for quite some time, and you feel like my body's just kind of, staying right here, and I'm having a hard time getting stronger, even though you might be checking all the boxes. One thing to consider is maybe it's time for me to add another training day, right? Another training day to, stimulate the muscle, to pulse my body, to really have more, shape change overall, is adding in another day. Now, we see this a lot in girls who do the Goddess Body Project because they'll start the first round, whether in person or online, and it's a lot, right? They're overwhelmed. They're like, oh my gosh, this is a lot. I'm not used to going to the gym and doing all the things. Then by the end, they're like, okay, found a rhythm. They do another round. Now they've got the exercise piece down. They're just really trying to fine tune the diet piece. I'm not saying it's all going to be easy, but you get the idea. And then by the third round, a lot of times we see they've got the gym part down, but they're like, I probably need to add another day. I feel like things are kind of stagnant with my reps, my sets and my body change, and they'll add in another day. And a lot of times when girls do this and then they shift more towards like bodybuilding and bikini competitions and things like that, that is when you will see people adding in a fourth, a fifth, a sixth day. And that's because their muscles are at a point where they've adapted really well. They're probably nearing their genetic potential for growth and they need to add more stimulus. There's a lot of reasons, but increasing frequency, again, is one that is overlooked and could be another way to progressively overload. The last one, which is another one that is very highly overlooked, mostly by people who are not real well versed in weight training. They haven't been weight training for very long. And I will say this is something that I didn't even start doing until probably halfway through my bodybuilding journey, maybe, is increasing the tension. So when we talk about this, this is really more of an advanced technique that we don't really try to bombard people who have never weight trained before with, because it can be overwhelming, right? The same thing goes for like nutrition. When you're just trying to find the basics, you don't want to worry about like how many grams of fiber, how many grams of sugar, and all these things. This is sort of those fine details that as you get more well-versed, you want to start paying attention to as a way to progressively overload. And this is honestly a love-hate relationship. I will say, as much as I hate doing it, I notice, at least for myself, because where I'm at in my muscle building journey, I notice the most change when I start to sprinkle this into my training. And that is essentially things like paused reps, where you do maybe a 3-second lifting phase, a 3-second lowering phase. There's a million ways to sort of do this. There's also things like pyramid sets, reverse pyramid sets, drop sets, all of these types of techniques that bodybuilders use to really get their body to change are things that normal people, just like you, right? A normal everyday woman who may have zero desire to ever compete, the same principles will apply for you. Once you get to a certain point, if you really want to see your body change, these are the ways that you can start implementing some techniques and some strategies that aren't confusing your muscles. They're actually challenging your muscles in the same program, just in a different context. So hopefully that makes sense. But this is your key right here, is these 4 sort of guidelines.
Yeah, so it's not, if we are hearing after 2 or 3 weeks, I'm bored and my workout just isn't doing anything for me, it's not the workout. I promise you, it's not the workout. There's so much that you can still do to master each movement before you can say the workout isn't working, right? So those are four key tips to help you. If you feel like it's just not doing anything for you, challenge yourself, push yourself. I mean, we as coaches, we provide you with the training, but there's gotta be some level of accountability from each person individually. You have to push yourself, because we can coach our butts off, but if you are not challenging yourself and holding yourself accountable, it's going to be really difficult to get the body that you're working for. So you're already there. Put the time in the gym. You're already in there. Give it your all and get the most value out of that workout session. And these are 4 really good ways to try and push yourself to grow that muscle. So the next thing we want to talk about is the golden rules. So this is another section, another aspect of growing and really trying to implement change in order to get change from your body. You guys have us as coaches. Use us. We try to provide all the information and all the resources, but like I just said, if there isn't anything coming from your side, then it's going to be really, really difficult. And this comes by way of check-ins. So Those of you who are working with a coach within the VIP program, feedback is just golden. It's the key, because if you tell me everything is going great and you are not actually even doing your workouts, then I'm going to be making changes to your workouts based on what you're telling me. And if I'm making changes and increasing your workout, or telling you need to be more intense when you're not actually even doing the workout you currently have, it can cause injury. It can cause, muscle fatigue. Overtraining is a thing. It is a thing, and it will keep you from progressing. So being honest with your coach, being honest with yourself, at the end of the day, that's really what's important. Feedback triggers change. So if we don't have the honest and the right feedback, you're not going to get honest and correct change.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with this too, I know that we are doing training audits in our private Facebook group too. So for those that are not VIP and you're in group, this is another way for us to get feedback, right? If we have videos to look at and we can assess how your training is going in multiple areas, right? Like your form, if, how assessing. So what I do is I have my clients do training audits, and I say, send me your top set of XYZ, right? Whatever I really want to see. Are they really, is this poop your pants hard, or is this like a walk in the park hard, right? There's a difference. And we want to find not poop your pants hard and not walk in the park. Excuse me, I know that's awful, but you want to be at like an 8, right? Like an, oh shit, I might poop my pants hard, okay? So with that, I can tell just by being a personal trainer and have training, hundreds of women in person, whether or not by looking at a video, a client is nearing their point of failure on an exercise. And there are certain cues I can tell. Is form breaking down? What are their facials looking like? Are they executing to full like depth on certain things, right? Are they doing partial reps when they should be doing full reps? So I can dissect a video and really pull out things and say, do it again and change these, and these things. And then I want to see. I've trained women across the globe like that. So it's super important if you're working with a coach that if they're not asking you to send training audits and they're just hoping that you're doing all the things and you really don't have a ton of experience, then it's probably a big question mark as to like, am I really doing this to fullest potential? You might need to hire a trainer to work with you to really see if you are indeed pushing yourself. And I'm just going to finish off by saying this. We hear this time and time and time again, not only in person, but also with the girls online in the current Goddess Body project, that, oh gosh, I thought I was really working out. I thought I was doing a good leg workout, but I am clearly nowhere close to doing what I thought I was doing right. So just thinking about that, perspective as far as, am I really, doing all the things? And then just to really circle back to recovery, that is going to be something that, again, is highly underrated, oftentimes forgot about. But if you're not recovering, you got to really take the time to say, where am I creating issues that are essentially letting my body resist making any kind of change? Is it my sleep? Is it my stress? Am I drinking too much caffeine? Am I drinking a lot of alcohol? Am I not getting enough protein? I know this feels like a lot, but at the end of the day, if you're going in the gym and spinning your wheels and you're investing in a program and doing all the things, you really want to take a step back and see where you can make the biggest improvements so you can reap the results for sure.
Yeah. And then, I mean, to tie in with what Diane just mentioned about recovery, we're not Wonder Woman, right? And we talked about this, I think, in one of the Monday coaching calls as well. Trying to go beast mode all the time is going to wear you out. So this comes to also with progressive overload. Don't go try to do all 4 of those examples in the same workout, because number 1, less is more. Number 2, like I said, overtraining is a thing. If you add a day and increase your weights and increase the reps and you slow it down with, time under tension, and you're doing all of those things. If you're able to do all of those things and not poop your pants, then that means you really were not challenging yourself at all. You should be able to change one of these and feel like, holy shit, that just was so hard. If you are really challenging yourself, you should be able to make small changes and feel the difference. And that's what we want. We don't want to overtrain our body. We want to slowly make the changes and not overwork our body. Because like we said, recovery is important. And if you're overtraining your body, you will feel the impact and slow your progress down.
Most definitely. And I will say, to Denise's point, if you do any of these, the one that is probably going to kill you the most is the playing around with tension, right? Intensity for sure, increasing your weight. Absolutely. Volume, same thing. You add more reps, by nature of that, you'll likely get sore. But I will say that from experience and working with clients, that when you start playing around with things like increasing the tension, that is the one that'll probably get you first. So just keep that in mind. And like she said, don't try to do all of them. Play around with maybe one of them and get really good at that. And then as your body adapts, you can sort of layer on, the different ways to progressively overload.
And don't forget muscle mind connection, guys, because if you're not connected with that muscle mind connection, then changing all of these elements is not going to be as effective. Making sure that you are connecting your mind to your muscle is the most important thing that you can do before you start incorporating all of these changes, because then you're just going through the motions, honestly. So make sure that you're really feeling the strength, the pull, the push in that muscle. And we've talked about several ways to do that as well. We try to give you guys tips on how to engage your muscles before you actually do the push or do the pull or, push the weight. So make sure that you're focusing on muscle mind connection as well, so that you're getting the most bang for your buck.
I will say, with the mind to muscle connection, that is something that took me a long time to understand. I was just like, oh, I'm just going in and picking up weight and putting it down, right? Nobody really explained it to me. And then with time, I started realizing that I was just sort of doing it without really realizing that was a thing. And then once I started, educating myself, became a trainer and all of those fun things, I realized how deeply important that is for you to not be working the wrong muscles, just kind of moving through momentum, moving through your joints instead of your muscles, potential for increased injury, all these things. Didn't realize that. And I know Denise has some really great tips for it as well, but my go-to is when I go in to do an exercise, I need to know what muscle that's working. I need to know. So for me, again, like I was talking about at the top of the workshop, it's Denise and I have the curse of knowledge. You can show me an exercise on a flashcard and be like, what muscle group does this work? I'm going to know like that. But a lot of us don't, right? A lot of the girls coming into the programs don't know, what does this work? So I highly encourage you, if you are not sure on your plan what muscle group that should be working, pop over to the Google and say, what does a hack squat? What is the primary muscle of the hack squat, right? Or whatever exercise. And that way, once you get into that machine, you're ready to go. What you want your brain to think, okay, I'm going to lift this machine with just this muscle and keep everything else like as still as you can, right? So that is my very generic way of how I get into my body and really focus on the muscle that should be doing all the work.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's really important that you said that, because if you don't know what muscle you're working, how do you connect to it? Right. So it is really important to understand which muscle you're working. And I know I've shared a couple of examples of that. Is my ways are really cheesy of how to connect. They seem like super simple and like, really close your eyes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I close my eyes. And I know that some of you have tried that. So, if that's worked, we'd love to hear your feedback. But I literally close my eyes and just think about the muscle. And as I'm, pulling or pushing or whatever, and I'm thinking about that muscle, I can feel it. So it might seem like I said, cheesy or very woo-woo or whatever you want to call it, but hey, if it works, why not, right? So find the way that works for you, but you really want to feel that muscle. And once you start doing that, then you can start incorporating, increasing weight and all of the other elements of progressive overload, and you'll really, really start to see the effects of that.
Most definitely. All right. So jumping into the chat box, Kim asks, how long of a time period of not working out will you start losing the muscle you have built up? So obviously this is going to vary just depending on the person. I think a lot of factors come into play. As far as that goes, age is probably going to be the biggest one. Unfortunately, as we get older, it's a lot harder to keep the muscle that we have. We have to work a little bit harder, unfortunately. But in terms of losing what you've built up, it's generally a few weeks, right? A few weeks of noticeable loss, I would say like 3 to 4 weeks. So it's important to continue to pulse your body in some way, shape, or form to keep those muscles happy and not, trying to leave. Because like Denise was saying, your body doesn't want to hang on to it really. It's an expensive muscle it's an expensive tissue to keep on your body. So it does require work. So I would say a few weeks. Cardiovascular endurance is a little bit different. I think that you start to lose a lot quicker than muscular endurance. It's a lot, yeah, it's two different energy systems. And I know you didn't ask that, but I thought I'd at least throw that in there.
And then also, if I could add to that, just as Diane said, it's going to vary by person. Genetically, how you hold on to muscle plays a big role. How much protein are you eating is also going to play a big role, because we know that protein helps us retain the muscle, also build muscle. So your nutrition is going to play a big part in that as well. So things that you can do is body weight. If you can't get to the gym, do some body weight. I mean, we underestimate the power of that. Is that going to reshape your body? No, you need to push heavy muscle. But if you can't get into the gym for 3 weeks, at least do some body weight to keep your body, to keep the stimulus in your body of using that muscle so that you don't lose it, or at least you don't lose as much.
Yes, exactly. Let's see. Shauna says, been trying to get biceps over 11 inches for years. Okay, Shauna. Yes. So Shauna, I would love to know if you've tried any of these methods in terms of progressive overload. Obviously progressive overload, I will say as a disclaimer, is only one piece of the conversation, right? Is your nutrition in check? That's going to be the biggest key. If we're having this conversation assuming that your nutrition is something that is foundation, because you're not going to build muscles out of thin air. You're not going to build muscle on eating salad and chicken breast. And, it's not going to happen. You have to be, the nutrition conversation is probably one for a different workshop, but that also is key for your body to change for sure with muscle growth and fat loss. Shauna says, when I can't lift heavier, I will focus on tension more. There you go. Awesome. Mary says that she has been recovering and listening to her body, and it has taken a few days easy this week because her back was hurting and she was able to get in today without pain. Beautiful. Absolutely. Yes. Never work through pain. You work around pain, or you wait until there is no pain. Let's see. Shauna says, is there a big difference lifting 3 versus 4 days? I noticed my body changed more with less days. Again, this is a great question and it's very person specific. For myself, I would consider myself an advanced lifter, been lifting for almost 20 years. I can get away with 3 days a week. I've already built a solid base. I'm pretty much at my genetic potential. I'm probably not going to grow much more muscle. I'm just going to keep what I have happy. So I'm cool with doing that 3 days a week. For somebody who's newer, who has never done weight training, they'd probably also be great with 3 days a week for a while. But if you notice you hit a plateau, that's when it's nice to add in a 4th day. But Shauna, much like myself, you might be in a position where 3 days is better for you, and it's better for recovery, lifestyle, and all that. So I would say stick with that for sure.
And kudos to you for noticing that, really, and listening to your body and paying attention to the body change that you are making, and correlating that and connecting that to how you're training and how often you're training. So kudos to you for that.
Exactly. Terry says, Coach Glitter suggested I slow down with my reps, and it has made all the difference. Yes. And this actually brings me to an amazing point that I forgot to mention in one of the slides. And as a personal trainer, is one of my biggest pet peeves is when we have women, and this kind of goes into this whole conversation of progressive overload, coming into the studio for the first time, or they're like relatively new, and they come from a background of like lots and lots of either cardio-y type classes, boot camp classes, large group classes. And then we put them in a personal training setting with 4 women in a session, and they're at weight training, they're doing a routine. And can't tell you the countless times I have looked over across the studio and I will see one of the new said person doing like burpees or jump squats or, switch lunges or abs or something in between, as they don't want to rest. They're like, oh, I'm going to do this until that station opens up so I can then do like my leg extension. This drives me crazy. I see that and I'm like, but why? And they're like, well, I just want to keep my heart rate up. When you're weight training, you need to take the rest. If you are not needing to rest in between your sets, with the exception of like your 1 or 2 warm-up sets, you're probably not working hard enough. I always say you need to earn your rest. You want to be breathless, usually by the time you're doing most of your lower body exercises, that you are begging for 90 seconds of rest. And it's important that you take that rest to its fullest potential. I will rest sometimes 2 to 3 minutes. I did glutes yesterday. I did 3 exercises. It took me an hour and 15 minutes. And I was resting 2 to 3 minutes between sets, because you need to let your cardiovascular system calm down, bring your heart rate down so you can go into your next set with as much strength to push as hard as you can. If you are over here doing burpees and jump squats as a means to just keep burning more calories, do you think you're going to be able to effectively move into a leg press and then either move that same weight or move heavier? Probably not. So that was just my soapbox moment I wanted to just present. If you're like, I don't like it, weight training is boring, it's too slow, you have to wait in between, well then, bitch, you're probably not working hard enough in your sets. I'm just being honest. Okay. So side tangent, side rant. Let's see. Wendy says, what do you suggest if you were working out alone and you can't lift heavier, but you have trouble re-racking at a heavier weight? Does that make sense? Yes, absolutely. So couple things I can think of. If you're talking about a specific exercise, plant it in there, but I will use something like, a squat or a hack squat or something like that, an exercise where you would want a spot. The unfortunate answer to this is you're going to need to make some friends in the gym. Because one thing is like, if you're trying to hit like a PR or you're a little unsure, you are probably going to want a spot of some kind. So you might want to find another, make eye contact with another girl at the gym, or if you're comfortable talking to a man at the gym, just say like, hey, would you be able to spot me, or just make sure like you can rack this because I can't, and trust me when I say they'll be glad to. And I know that that's like putting yourself out there, but it's the gym. That's what we're doing, right? And it's just, everybody gets to a point where you will likely need that at some point.
And I don't know if maybe, Wendy, you're talking about a squat, or like Diane said, if you have a specific exercise you're talking about, but because honestly, if it's a deadlift, you can drop it. Obviously, if it's a machine, you can drop it. If it's chest press, you probably shouldn't have any chest press anyway. So if that's something, then I don't think that's even on our program. But squat, leg press. Okay. So the leg press, there's a safety on the leg presses. So use those safeties. You can have them set, maybe have them a little bit higher and work your way lower. So feel confident, show yourself you can do it, and then use that safety. And if you feel like, okay, that was good, then bring the safety down a little bit lower so that your range of motion can be even deeper, and just take it step by step. But with the leg press, or with any of the exercises, really use the safety mechanisms, the safety features that are on the machines. That should help you.
And I will say, just to clarify, so that way everybody is aware, because I think this is an important thing that maybe, again, because Denise and I have the curse of knowledge, we maybe didn't make this distinction, is that every time you go into the gym, you should not be pushing every exercise to failure.
Right.
So there, when you're on the leg press, I'm never go until failure. And if I was going to, it's very rare, but I would have a training partner with me just to say, like, I'm going to really push. This is a PR. I'm going to see as many as I can. And even then, I know myself, I'll probably come like 1 rep shy of failure because I'm not trying to ego lift or like hurt myself. So when you're doing your training, and we'll use that leg press for an example. Actually, I did this earlier this week. So a leg press, I'm just going to lay it out in like a sequence for you because I got asked this a lot actually the last couple of weeks. For a leg press, I will do likely 6 sets. And let me break down real quickly what that looks like. Okay. Set 1, I put no weight on the machine. I get in the machine and I say, what does my body feel like today? How is this moving? This is like a warm up precursor to all the things. So I don't want to load weight and I need to let my central nervous system catch up to the demand. So the first one will be usually 6 to 8 reps with nothing on it. Set 2, I'll put a plate on each side. Same thing. How are we feeling here? 6 to 8 reps. Great. Set 3, now we're starting to get a little bit spicy. Set 3, 4, 5, and 6. So set 3 could look like 2 plates on each side, right? Again, 6 to 8 reps. I'm building up that sort of ramping up my central nervous system to be able to handle that. Why 6 to 8 reps? Because I don't want to sit there and do 10 to 15 or 15 to 20 or whatever to warm up. I just need to get my joints ready, my muscles lubed up, everything primed and ready. So when I go into my working sets, I'm ready to go and I'm not already exhausted. So that first warm up set, I'm maybe resting like a minute or two, really to just kind of get the weights on. I get back in. And so those warm up sets, I'm resting probably 90 seconds, nothing too crazy. And then when I get into those working sets, I'm starting to push real heavy. And by that 6th set, that is where I'm moving the most weight and really tracking my weight as far as that goes with my sets and what I want to beat every week. So hopefully that makes sense. If I lost you anywhere, feel free to raise your hand or kind of plug it in the chat. But this is why your workouts can sometimes take a minute because you want to, and I'm 46. I wouldn't have done this when I was 26, but I'm paying the price for not doing it. So I do it now so I can continue to lift until I'm, 110. So yeah.
So when we're talking about recovery, are we talking about recovery within those muscle groups specifically? And what I mean is, like, some days I find myself weight training like 6 days a week, but let's say it's legs 3 times and then full body twice and then an upper body 1 day. So having that spread apart, like the legs would be like Monday, Thursday, Saturday at Venus, right? Mm-hmm. So that would be allowing enough time for recovery, right? I'm just trying to see if I'm understanding it.
Yes. So essentially, are you hitting legs 4 times? Because then you're hitting 3 lower and then a full body, right?
Oh yeah, I do full body twice a week too. Okay.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot, hun.
Got it.
Yeah, so you have to think of it, yes, muscle recovery, but systemically as well, right? Because your central nervous system is going to be hit, and we don't think about that. So you are going to notice some stressors in other areas, and it can start causing some issues with cortisol if you're doing too much. I mean, it's pretty rare, but you'll notice it. If you start to notice you have a lot of like nagging aches and pains, you're maybe not sleeping so well, you're just a little more irritable, you're kind of losing your motivation for going to the gym. A lot of times that's an indication of overtraining. I have definitely been there in my bodybuilding days. And then the other piece of that, again, like I was saying, if your nutrition is not meeting the demands of your training, that is also going to be, your nutrition is also a huge piece of the recovery. So you just want to make sure you're covering that. I usually do not recommend more than 3 days of lower body. And honestly, the 3 days of lower body, I usually will recommend to like, you know, a competitor or somebody who's been training long enough and they want to add in, you know, some more progressive overload and add a 3rd day of legs, but it's really hard to recover. They're really large muscle groups. And the other piece of it, back to the central nervous system, is you don't want to be spine loading that many days. So you got to look at your program and say, okay, how much am I spine loading? How much of this is maybe like accessory movements where I am not loading my spine with anything and my body's recovering okay? I know there's a lot of like gray area, but you really have to sort of tease it out so you don't overdo it for sure. So hopefully that answered your question. Nutrition questions. So what should the macro split be? How do I know if I'm getting enough fat? Protein is more than I weigh. Okay, so that's a key factor. So Shauna's saying basically how much protein. Macro splits, I don't really get too much into. It's a little bit different for everybody. It would require a process of going down a rabbit hole of many different factors. But in terms of fats, we're not getting enough fat. And especially, I know Denise comes from a bodybuilding world as well. She's a competitor too. And so our fat gets really, really low. And I oftentimes say, if you're not competing and pushing your body to that extreme level, there's no reason why your fat should be that low, right? You want to be hormonally sound, and part of that is having enough dietary fat. And if you're dipping under 40 as a general rule of thumb, 40 grams per day, you're starting to play around with some possible hormonal disruption. So you want to make sure you're getting over 40 grams. But again, at the end of the day, just make sure that you're also not eating too many calories, right? So that is the fat discussion. And then protein, she's saying, is more than she weighs. The jury is out on the, you know, the need for us to be eating more grams of protein than we weigh. And again, that's usually a conversation saved for competitors because they are using that extreme levels of dieting, extreme training, and things like that, where they want to pack on as much protein or pack on as much muscle and save what muscle they're kind of have in a deficit. So they will tend to eat more than their body weight. But most women, as a general rule of thumb, it depends on how many days a week you're training. But as a baseline, let's just say you're training 3 days a week in the gym. You're going to want to consume about 0.7 as a low end in calculation. So multiply your current body weight times 0.7, and then look at that number and try to hit that number as a low end of things, right? And that's just to cover hypertrophy and honestly recovery. So if you have, you know, any questions further about, you know, hypertrophy as it pertains to whatever your physique or progressive overload, by all means, you know where to find us, tag us in the group, and we will answer that all for you. And thanks, Denise, for co-hosting this with me, and we'll see you guys on the next time.